Several prominent atheists have debated Dinesh D'Souza by now. Christopher Hitchens, Daniel Dennett, Michael Shermer, Dan Barker, and I would say that most of them had a really hard time in debating him, and I would not agree to the opinion of many atheists here on YouTube who claim that Dinesh D'Souza was beaten. Not even by Christopher Hitchens, who is a very good debater himself. I would say that the atheist that did best in debating Dinesh D'Souza was Peter Singer. To my impression, D'Souza's very good performance is not so much due to his sound arguments. It's more due to the skillful use of debate tactics. Debate tactics like the one he admits having used in a debate with Christopher Hitchens. In his blog from July the 9th, 2008, he says, "In thinking about this debate, I'm reminded of an argument that Hitchens made in our New York debate last October. At that time, I did not know how to answer his point, so I employed an old debating strategy. I ignored it and answered other issues. Anyway, Dinesh D'Souza prepared an answer, and half a year later, when he debated Christopher Hitchens once again, together with Dennis Prager, he then presented this reply. Even though he had months to think about it, his answer is utter nonsense and based on ignorance, as I want to show in this video. Let's listen to Hitchens' argument first.
In order to believe any of this, you have to believe the following: that our species, 75,000 years old in archaeological terms, that's when the first traces show up, 100,000 years old for sure. Francis Collins and Richard Dawkins all agree on that. It's not less than 100, could be as many as 200,000 or quarter of a million years old. You'd have to believe to be religious now, that for the first, if we give it 100 as the round figure, for the first 95,000 years or so, people are born, die, probably having lived about 20, 25 years. Most of their children will die younger than that, in horrible ways, probably of their teeth or of diseases they can't give a name to. But the struggle goes on, painful, agonizing, and full of fear, and full of panic, and ignorance, and superstition, and disease. But slow progress is made, perhaps, and then relapses as people fight over women, fight over territory, fight over gain, fight just in order to fight. And heaven watches this. Paradise watches this. The Creator watches this for 95,000 years with folded arms. And after about 5,000 years, says it's time to intervene. Preferably by human sacrifice methods, and only in the most backward and primitive and fearful parts of the Middle East. And that'll constitute revelation, and that is going to be the participation of God in human affairs. If you believe that, then you are willing, ladies and gentlemen, to believe absolutely anything, but you believe something that suggests that your Creator is someone both bungling and incompetent, and at the very, very least, callous, inhumanly cold, and indifferent, and at the worst, actively wicked.
Now, what was D'Souza's answer? Remember, he had half a year to think about it.
Christopher Hitchens began by posing what is to me a very striking question. He said, "Isn't it odd that you've got 100,000 years of uneventful history, and then suddenly God appears to jump in the picture?"
Isn't it odd that Hitchens never said such a thing? He did not say that history was uneventful, he said that humankind lived under most miserable circumstances. But D'Souza's objection does fit much better after misrepresenting Hitchens' argument.
Suddenly, if you will, the religious story gets going. I would submit that even if you took God out of the picture completely, the puzzle remains. If we've been on this planet for 100,000 years as Darwinian primates, having pretty much the same brains that we have now, why is it the case that for 95,000 of those years man accomplished virtually nothing? Not having invented a wheel, not having come up with a cave painting even, and then suddenly 5,000 years ago history gets started. History gets started in a lot of different places. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Sumerians, everybody starts inventing stuff. it does appear as if some sort of a transcendent breath may have grabbed a couple of those Darwinian primates and breathed something we might call a soul into them. This would explain things a lot better, wouldn't it?
So what is D'Souza's answer? Why did God reveal himself only 100,000 years after modern human came into existence? Because, he says, there were no humans in the religious sense before that. Only Darwinian primates, but they had no soul. And then 5,000 years ago, God blew the soul into the primate. D'Souza's evidence for this claim is that humanity accomplished nothing for 100,000 years, but then several cultures like the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Babylonians arose from nothing. This, he says, indicates that people suddenly got smarter. They were no longer Darwinian primates, not more intelligent than an ape, but they became human by a soul implemented to them that obviously works like some kind of intelligence booster. This explanation D'Souza presents does not get any more substantiated. It's a mere idea, nothing more. But does D'Souza get at least the facts straight he tries to explain? Is it true that 5,000 years ago cultures suddenly appeared out of nothing? And did humankind achieve literally nothing before that? Is it true that at the same time the religion thing started? By the way, monotheism is even younger than that, and monotheism is which D'Souza's argument is bound to, not religion as such. D'Souza defends the Judeo-Christian God. The first known case of monotheism was under the rule of Akhenaten, a pharaoh who reigned from 1353 BC to 1336 BC. The Jewish version of monotheism is even a couple of hundred years younger than that. So it's more correct to talk about 3,000 years ago than to talk about 5,000 years ago, as both Hitchens and D'Souza do. Let's see what Darwinian primates without soul-enhanced intelligence were able to achieve up to that point. Humankind invented fire, clothing, houses, spears, blades, needles, woven baskets, boats, agriculture, brewing, art, adobe, copper working. While the wheel is just a bit older than 5,000 years, cave paintings, contrary to what D'Souza says, are 20 to 30,000 years old. The first permanent settlements that are known today date from 10,000 BC. In the following thousands of years, several kinds of animals were domesticated, as were several kinds of crops. Also, there were some forms of religiosity that were much older than D'Souza's 5,000 years. Intentional burials with grave goods, figurines, and cave paintings point to this conclusion. The first intentional burial is dated more than 100,000 years BC. The first temple site, Göbekli Tepe, now in Turkey, is dated 11,000 BC. Neither the Egyptian nor the Sumerian culture arose from nothing. They developed on what humankind had achieved in hundreds of thousands of years. Humankind did not change suddenly from dumb primates to intelligent beings with a soul. There is no such mystery we need a God of the gaps for to explain it. It's all made up by D'Souza.